Welcome to a very late edition of MLS Matchweek number 5 review. And the reason why I say that is because it's Tuesday. It's been a while since all these games that has been finished, and I did say in the preview that I try my best to do it on Monday night and as soon as I got back home. But since yesterday, it took me 15 hours to get back from San Diego to where I live, and keep in mind I took the train and the bus. That's why it took so long, and there was tons of delays doing that time when get back to home. I was absolutely exhausted. I just could not really be asked to do this review. Now, to be fair, I did write down the board yesterday so that I can basically do this review right now and I don't have to write on the board, and also catch a couple of the highlight clip that basically shows all these games, because I didn't really watch a lot of MLS action this weekend, which I was kind of expected because I was going to be busy while I was down in San Diego. So yeah, I did watch some highlights clip to kind of see what exactly happened in the game, and you can tell that I did not watch the game in some of the things I'll talk about in this game and some of the big detail that I missed. But one big detail that I definitely did not miss in the first game I'm going to be talking about is Alejandro Pozuelo. So Pozuelo, of course, making his debut in this game between TFC and NYCFC, and my word, this was probably one of the best debut you will ever see, and I think it's going to be right up there in terms of the Zlatan debut last year. I mean, I still think the Zlatan debut is probably the best debut we have ever seen a player debut in MLS because of the goals that he scored and the moment. And I'm not saying that, Pozuelo coming into this game, his goal was bad. His goal was just absolutely amazing, and he also made some big impact in this game. But the difference between the Zlatan debut to this is that the Zlatan debut was on national TV. It was in a Clasico. It was in a derby game, and the way that he just changed the game and just made a Hollywood kind of script, that's why I think that debut kind of still stands as the best debut we'll ever see. And probably it's going to take a lot to try to outdone what Zlatan did in that debut. But this one was pretty close because Pozuelo, he got 2 goals and 1 assist in this game. His first assist came in the 29th minute when Altidore scores from him and Osorio. Pozuelo actually had a goal that was called offside a couple of minutes ago, and I think was it Altidore that shot that ball, and then Pozuelo tried to redirect it, but unfortunately he was in an offside position, and he already knew it when he touched the ball. He was just, on the replay, it showed he was at least 4 yards offside. But like I said, he contributed to the first goal that TFC scored, and then he contributed on the goal scoring part as he scored a Panenka penalty in the 58th minute. And that really kind of shocked a lot of people, the fact that he decided to try a Panenka. I mean, when you're making a debut for your club and you're gonna have a penalty to basically score your debut goal for your club, I don't think a lot of people would have the nerves and the nerves of steel to try to go for a Panenka and basically score your debut goal. Because if he missed that, I bet TFC fan would definitely not happy with the way that he just wasted an opportunity, even though they were up 1-0. But man, he just had an absolute nerves of steel to try to do that, and he completely fooled Sean Johnson in this play. And then the second goal he scored also fooled Sean Johnson, and I guess this second goal that he scored, I mean, it was a great goal with him just kind of like looping it over the head of Sean Johnson and heading into the top left corner. But at the same time, it looked like that was meant to be a cross. When Josie Altidore was making the run, he was Pozuelo was expected to basically chip it over the defender, and then basically Altidore is gonna basically head that one in. But it looked like he kind of over chipped that and kind of overcrossed that, but somehow, in some way, it still find the back of the net, and Sean Johnson, he was completely fooled by that. And also the fact that he wasn't really in a good position too, that's why he kind of got fooled by that. And Osorio, of course, with the assist there. So Jonathan Osorio, a guy with all the talk about Pozuelo, I think this is a guy that kind of was left out of the headline because he did get 2 assists, and that's definitely a very decent job for him. And then, of course, to put the cherry on the top, Chapman scores from Aro to make it 4-0 TFC, and that is your final score. Shots in this game, TFC had 16 shots compared to 7 that NYCFC has. 9 shots on goal compared to 3 that NYCFC had. 3 shots off target compared to 4 that NYCFC had. 4 shots that was blocked compared to none that NYCFC had. And TFC had 52% possession compared to 48% possession that NYCFC has. And, as I said before, this was, at the end of the day, the big headline in this was Pozuelo, and how I think after this performance, yeah, he's worth every penny of what TFC pay in. I think, obviously he is a guy that is going to be the Victor Vasquez kind of replacement, and after what we saw in this game, not only he's a great replacement, but he looks even better than what Victor Vasquez was with TFC. But as for NYCFC, yeah, this is bad. And this is what I've been saying of how, Domai Turin, with these kind of performance, his seat is going to get even hotter. And I think since this week I have spring break and I don't have like a lot of things to do, I'm going to make a video talking about the coaches I'm going to list the numerous coaches around the league that I expect to be out of work and expected to be fired by the end of the year. I mean, last year we saw a lot of coaches getting fired and basically a lot of high turnover rate in terms of the coaching areas. And I think maybe this year, knowing what we saw so far this season, something tells me it's going to be something similar to what happened last year. But next up, Minnesota. So, I said Minnesota in that loss against the Galaxy was a big missed opportunity, although I think seeing what the Galaxy has done lately, I'm kind of regrettable saying that was a big missed opportunity. This game, however, was a big missed opportunity, and this is a game that is going to really kind of dash the hope of making the playoffs for Minnesota, because they did not play very well whatsoever. And they lost to a New England side that was in a crisis coming into this game. But somehow New England was finally able to score a goal at home after they didn't score one in their first 2 games. And it was Anababa scores from heel, which, the goalkeeper by Minnesota, man, he should have clearly saved that. Like, the fact that, Anababa, he didn't really head it that kind of strongly, but the way that the Minnesota goalkeeper basically saved it and then somehow triggered into the back of the net, yeah, usually when that happens, it's basically the goalkeeper's fault of letting that go in. And in this case, again, like I said, I don't think when Anababa hits this goal off his head, it didn't look like it was off of a lot of power. But having said that, New England definitely will take that and finally break the mini drought that they have at home of not scoring a goal. But then Minnesota did get the equalizer after Quintero converts a penalty, and it is at that point it's 1-1. And I'm thinking, well, I think Minnesota eventually they're going to get it going, and that they're going to get that second goal. And they definitely had a couple of decent chances of their own in the first half to potentially score that second goal, but New England was able to hold firm. And then in the second half, Brendan Bye scores from Bunbury and Jones, and that is your final score in this game. And the shots in this game for New England, 19-10 in terms of the shots that they have in this game. 5 shots on goal compared to 3 that Minnesota has. 11 shots off target compared to 3 that Minnesota had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 4 that Minnesota has. And possession-wise, it was pretty even. Minnesota did edge the possession-wise, 51% to 49%. But I really think in the second half, Minnesota, they didn't really create a lot in the second half. And even though when they were down to 2-1 and New England was kind of like just sitting back and try to absorb all the pressure, they didn't really show that much. And like I said before, Minnesota, this is a big missed opportunity because you were playing against a New England team that was definitely not not coming into this game with a lot of confidence, and I just think that, will this game come back to haunt Minnesota in terms of them missing the playoffs late in the year? Because I think for Minnesota, I know that they're going to win a lot of their home games, but when you're on the road and you're facing a team that is just in crisis right now, if you want to be a playoff team, you got to win these games, even though if it's on the road. Next up, Sporting KC. Well, they put up a 7 spot in this game against Montreal. And did I mention this week there was a lot of blowouts and a lot of goals that were scored so far this week? Yeah, this was one of them. And I think Sporting KC, not only they have scored the most goal ever in their franchise history, last year they actually put up a 6 spots against Vancouver, and this time they were able to do one more better. But I think Sporting KC also become, I think, the 4th team in MLS to score 7 goals in an MLS game. And, when I look at this game, this was kind of the game that I was in some way expected in that LAFC versus RSL game, where you have an opponent like LAFC, or in Sporting KC, this situation where they were just completely stacked. Like, Peter Vermes decided to put his strongest starting 11 that is just well rested, and they are playing against a team that is like RSL. Montreal was very depleted heading into this game. Like, they were missing Piatti in this game. They were missing a couple of key starters in this game. And I will also kind of argue the fact that even if they have those players, I don't know if it actually made a whole bunch of difference. Because when Sporting KC has a good starting, have the strongest starting 11, and have a well-rested starting 11, and they're able to basically click on all cylinder like what they did in this game, it doesn't matter which team you feel. They are going to be the best team in MLS, and they show in this game. Russell, of course, gets the party started in the 10th minute, and Sporting KC actually had a goal that was disallowed early in this game, so this game could have been 8-1 if that goal was not disallowed. But like I said, Russell gets the party started in the 10th minute to make it 1-0 Sporting KC, and then Nemeth scores from Gerso and Gutierrez to make it 2-0 Sporting KC, and right before halftime, Gutierrez scores from Gerso and Espinoza to make it 3-0, and I think after that I would have probably just switched off the TV and basically say that, yeah, it's done. There is no way Montreal is going to come back. And I'm pretty sure a lot of Impact fans had done the same thing that I did. They probably just turn off the TV and realize that, yeah, it is over. Second half, it gets worse. Russo scores from Espinoza to make it 4-0. And then Nemeth score his second from Russo to make it 5-0. So Johnny Russell up to that point had 2 goals and 1 assist. And then Busio gets into the action to make it 5-0 Sporting KC. I believe that's the second goal for Gianluca Busio, who I think he scored 1 last season. Then Nemeth, of course, complete his hat-trick in the 84th minute from Ilie to make it 7-0 at that point. Taidir did get a consolation in the 89th minute, and kind of a Brazilian-type consolation with him getting the goal in the 89th minute from Urruti and Lovitz to make it 7-1. But yeah, that was the final score of this game, as Sporting KC absolutely ran Montreal off the park in this one, a final score of 7-1. Shots in this game, Sporting KC, despite the fact that they did score 7 goals, they only had 17 shots. I mean, that's still a lot of shots, but when you see them scoring a ton of goals, you would expect they might have at least 20 plus shots in this game. Compared to Montreal that has 13, but they do have 9 shots on goal compared to 2 that Montreal has, so it's clear that Sporting KC was very clinical in this game, and that every time they got the ball and they shoot it on goal, it's always end up into the back of the net. Both teams had 5 shots off target. Sporting KC had 3 that was blocked compared to 6 that Montreal has. Possession-wise, Sporting KC had 55% possession compared to 45% that Montreal has. And yeah, like I said, this was a matter of a very good team, a very stacked team against a team that was very depleted. And when that happened, usually the script is that that very good team is going to absolutely destroy the team that is depleted, and that was the case. So, if you're an Impact fan, I know this is going to be very frustrated, and that, this was kind of in some way an embarrassment. But having said that, they were missing a couple of big starters, and that I think if they do have some of those guys back, they won't suffer these kind of losses. At least that's what I hope Montreal would not do in the future, because Montreal has done pretty well so far in the start of the season. It's not like they were off to a bad start heading into this game. They won a couple of road games, but I think it's just because of the fact that they were missing a couple of key guys. And I think since this is the 4th straight road trip, when you're on the road for so long, yeah, you're gonna definitely get exhausted after that point, and I think that's what happened to Montreal in this game. But yeah, speaking of blowouts, the Quakes, yeah, they got absolutely ran out of the park in this game. And unlike Montreal, where I can at least give them the excuse, the fact that they were on the road for so long and that they had some key players that were injured in that team, the Quakes, they have no excuses in this. This was at home, although I don't think this was actually a home game for the Quakes, because knowing the fact that LAFC and their fans and the 3252 basically just took over Avaya Stadium like nobody's business. Yeah, it didn't look like it was a home game whatsoever. And as much as I hate to say this, because I wasn't actually there for this game either, so I shouldn't just complain the fact that, the home atmosphere was absolutely awful when I'm not even there. But as much as I hate to say this, I'm glad I wasn't there to witness this massacre, because this was just downright embarrassing. And this is where I go back to say about the same thing that I've been saying for the last 2 years, which is this team is clearly not good enough. And the reason why this team is not good enough is that you have a GM that is clearly a fucking liar. Okay? And apologies if I swear or not, but this resort really infuriating me. And I know coming into this game against LAFC, I said in the preview that I don't expect a lot of things coming into this game, and I don't think we're going to win it. But having seen this performance like this, that was not what I expected, to say that I wasn't expect a lot of game. I was expect at least this team to be competitive in some way, and at least just not get absolutely rolled over like this and just gave up before the first whistle began. And that is exactly what happened. And this also goes back to what I just said about our GM Jesse Fornelli, who is a fucking liar. He said a couple of years ago that he was supposed to change the culture and was supposed to just bring in these players that will change the dynamic of this team. Yeah, you bring in these players to change dynamics to only get these kind of resort. And this is not the first time this has happened. This has happened the last couple of years, and he's a fucking liar, okay, in some way. And he even said that in the beginning of the season that, yeah, I'm sorry that you had to witness what has happened this year, but we are gonna try to do a little bit better. Things are gonna turn around. You tell me, you saying this is the thing that turned around? This, so far from what I'm seeing this season, looks so much worse than what happened last season. And, Jesse Fornelli, he's not only the main guy that I have to blame, but the other guy that I also have to blame is our owner, John Fisher. And I've been saying, I know I haven't been talking about John Fisher and haven't been calling out of him being an absolute asshole for this team and he needs to sell the team immediately, but I've been always saying that he should not be owning this team. Like, a guy that owns the Oakland A's and he only cares about the Oakland A's and not really care about the Quakes throughout his time to own the team. And we've seen so far in this league, when you have owners that only cares about one of the other team that is not MLS, but don't care about a team in MLS. You got owners like Stan Kroenke, Robert Kraft, as an example of that kind of type. Look what happened to those teams. Look what happened to Colorado, of them just being mediocre for so long. And the same goes with the Revs so far in the last couple of years. It just, it really pissed me off the fact that we have an owner that just doesn't even care about this team. And I've been saying for so long that why in the world are we not spending the money? Well, the reason why we're not spending the money is because one, the owner don't care about this team, and two, he refused to bring some money to the team that he cared less, because the team that he's owned with the Quakes is pretty much his asset. Yeah, he only spent money for the A's, and even with the A's, he doesn't even spend a lot of money with that team. You know, if you ask any A's fan, and I'm not an A's fan personally, they'll say that they're a team that is not known for spending money. So overall, he just does not spend money. He trying to do the Moneyball approach with the A's and trying to do the same thing with the Quakes. Now, with the A's, maybe that of course would work if you have a good kind of academy system, and the Quakes does have an good academy system, but in some way that does not work in MLS, especially these. We're at a point of MLS 3.0 era where teams are spending more money and being more ambitious. If you're still trying to be cheap and you still try not to spend money to get some guys that we desperately need, then you are not going to catch up to MLS 3.0. This team is still in an MLS 1.0 kind of mindset that I just feel it feels so frustrated to support this team, of the fact that they're not catching up to the league. They're just getting left behind the league for dead. And as long as if we do not address this, as long as we don't spend money and don't get guys that we're supposed to get, and this is also where I led to whoever is scouting these players, who they also need to fuck off too. Whoever is scouting our players and whoever is getting these guys and basically telling Jesse Fornelli that those are the guys that they will potentially sign, they need to fuck off too. Because those guys that bring in guys like Eriksson, Vako, and Cummins, they have not shown anything close to being what they were advertising with this team. But at the end of all of this, I'm sick of it. I am just absolutely done with the way I'm seeing this team week in, week out, putting these kind of embarrassing display, and that I think as long as we don't start spending money, and that this summer transfer window is really the one that I will really judge this team. If this team does not spend money and they don't spend it wisely to get a decent player to solve some of our biggest problem in this team, we gotta blow this club up. Like, from the top to bottom, all of these guys have to get out of here. John Fisher, please sell your team. Jesse Fornelli, please fuck off back to Switzerland. We don't want you, because if you screw this up in the summer transfer window, we are definitely putting the Fornelli out banner. And if anyone want to join that movement, and I know there are some people that have joined that movement, then I'm gladly will accept the offer, because I'm done with this team. I am absolutely done with this team. But either way, let's get back into this after my little mini kind of rant with this team. First half, Vela scores from Mark-Anthony Kaye, and you know that guy Mark Sinkowski, who was a very decent kind of goalkeeper for us, and that when he came in the second half of the season, we thought that he was potentially going to be our starting goalkeeper in this season. Oh yeah, why not decided that we're going to put him back to our USL squad so that he can get more experience, and we're going to basically sign an NPSL level kind of goalkeeper, that is Daniel Vega. Now, to be fair, Vega, he has shown, at times he have shown some flashes of brilliance, and at times have saved us a couple of time to be absolutely embarrassed, but at the same time, it's clear that Vega is not a MLS starting caliber goalkeeper. At best, I would say that he could be a backup kind of goalkeeper, and in this goal that he conceded, yeah, this just shows you why he's not a starting caliber goalkeeper. Like, as he was getting the ball, well, as he was trying to boot the ball away, he completely missed the ball. And I know this at least will happen once or twice in a goalkeeper career, but whenever you see that happen, and especially the reputation that Vega has coming into this game and the background of what he's been the last couple of years, yeah, you're definitely going to get more stick than those starting goalkeeper that are like the best starting goalkeeper in this league, like guys like Stefan or Fry, those guys that are good starting caliber goalkeeper. If they make those mistakes, then a lot of people would forgive him. But because of Vega and because of the fact that he's an MPSL level goalkeeper, yeah, that's why he's gonna deserve more stick than usual. And then the second goal in the 26th minute, Beta Shore scored from Atuesta because, former Quakes player will always tends to find a way to score us. And I believe that's the second time that Beta Shore has scored against his former team. I know he scored against us when he was with TFC. And then Vela scores from Rossi and Dio to make it 3-0. And I'll tell you what, if I was even at the game, I would have left after this point because I knew that this game was over. And there's just no point watching this team in the second half why do I deserve to watch this team in the second half when they were performing like absolute dog shit in the first half and not giving a lot of effort? And then Rossi scores, or Vela actually scored from Beta Shore to make it 4-0. Vela, of course, complete his hat trick. And with all my anger out of this game, one thing I will say is that Vela, he absolutely put a show in this game. I know there was a lot of fans that just came into this game just to see Vela play, and they definitely got their money's worth. Even Quakes fans that has like Mexican heritage, seeing Vela does this kind of performance must be happy for them, even though it kind of is wrong to say, because, who the heck cares about the Quakes right now? And then Rossi scores from Vela to complete route to make it 5-0 at that point. So Vela, of course, 3 goals and an assist, and he also won Player of the Week, which I'll mention again in tomorrow's episode of the News of the Week. And that, of course, is your final score in this game. Shots in this game, yeah, I'm just going to quickly go over this because it just shows you how embarrassing it was. LAFC had 20 shots compared to 6 that San Jose has. 10 shots compared to the Quakes 2. 7 shots off target compared to 2 that the Quakes had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that the Quakes had. And possession-wise, 52% possession compared to 48% possession that LAFC has. And yeah, like I said, LAFC, this was a complete performance, and I'm pretty sure they gave the away fans a show that they will never forget. And for the Quakes, just as what I said in the beginning of my rant, that summarized their performance in this one, which was just absolutely disgraceful. But moving on, and now kind of calming myself after having that mini rant, because my heart rate kind of goes up a little bit after talking about this game. We're going to be talking about Cincinnati versus the Union, where the Union gets a 2-0 win over Cincinnati. And I don't know, should I call this an upset? Because, one, this was a game that's taking place in a downpour kind of rain. And you're going to see in the next game that I'm going to be talking about, it was also in a downpour kind of rain. Basically, the whole state of Ohio was just drenched with rain this weekend. And, in this one, I think for FC Cincinnati, the rain might have kind of played a factor to them. Although, I will also say this, whenever you have kind of like a downpour rain or just poor weather position, I feel like I don't like to make that as an excuse of why a team loses, because the other team have to play in that same condition. So, there's just no excuse the fact that you're playing in a kind of rainy weather, and that even if you're not playing very well because of the weather condition, the other team would have to suffer the same thing, but yet they're still performing. And, overall, when you look at this game, it wasn't really a fun game to watch. I mean, I didn't really watch this whole game, but I can tell that this game was not a fun game to watch. And the first half was the case, because nothing really happened and we head into halftime was so scoreless. Second half, though, there was something that happened. Fabian scores from David Akam, so Akam continue his kind of hot form lately, and then he scored a goal in the 58 minutes to make it 2-0 for the Union, and that is your final whistle for this one. Shots in this game, the Union had 16 shots compared to 5 that FC Cincinnati has. 3 shots off on goal compared to 2 that FC Cincinnati has. 7 shots off target compared to 1 that FC Cincinnati has. 6 shots that was blocked compared to 2 that FC Cincinnati has. And the Union has 56% possession compared to 44% possession that FC Cincinnati has. And for FC Cincinnati, they really didn't show up in this game. And I think it's clear that after seeing this kind of performance, it looked like FC Cincinnati has kind of come back down to earth. And this is kind of what maybe we're going to expect throughout the season, where they're definitely going to have some high points and that they're going to also have some very low points. And this was kind of one of them, which, when you're a team that kind of had those kind of moments, I think these are the team that is going to be like on the bubble of making the playoffs. I mean, I think after the last couple of performances, I heard some people say that FC Cincinnati might be able to do what Atlanta and LAFC did, which is make the playoffs, and did it convincingly. I don't know. Like, I think those were just times when they were kind of like, those were games when they were just kind of like in some way caught in the moment, and that the players were just kind of like all informed. But as soon as, if you have one of these games like this where nothing kind of goes right for you, then yeah, that just tells me that this team, this team definitely have talent, but I don't know if it's enough to say that this expansion team and that this team is going to be like what LAFC and Atlanta did a year ago, and that they could definitely be on the bubble of making the playoffs if this is the way that we're going to see them play, where they're going to have some high points and also have some low points. And as for the Union, well, it seemed like they're starting to figure it out. It seemed like this team, the pressing system that they've been trying to run, it started to be effective, and that has to be good news for Union fans, and definitely good news for Jim Curtin. That is, here's a hint, he's going to be one of the guys that will be featured in tomorrow's episode of coaches that I think could be fired by the end of the year. But yeah, next up, and the last one on this board before I switch the board, is the other game that I was talking about how it was suffer in drenched rain. Although this one was more like a monsoon, and this one was kind of like a kind of just a rainstorm. This was just like, the fact that this game actually went the full 90 minutes was kind of surprising, because it was just pouring down like we have never seen before. And in the first half, Santos scores in the second minute to make it 1-0 Columbus, and then Zardes scores from Robinho and Higuain to make it 2-0 for Columbus, and that of course is your final whistle. And really in the second half, it was almost like unplayable for both of these teams. The way that the ball just kind of stopped in front, kind of like just stop whenever it hits a tough patches, and a patch where there's a lot of rain. It just makes me wonder, how in the world did they not call this game? And for Atlanta, I know Atlanta fans will complain about the weather and say that is probably one of the reasons why they weren't doing very well. But I also go back to what I said earlier with this game, where yes, I know you are playing in a bad weather and it could potentially affect you, but at the same time, Columbus is also playing in those same kind of condition, and they seems to do very, very fine and have not a lot of problem. And I think maybe the only encouraging sign for Atlanta coming out of this game is that at least they actually look more threatened on the attack than they have been in the last couple of weeks. I mean, in terms of the shots, Atlanta had 16 shots compared to 8 that Columbus had. 5 shots on goal compared to 3 that Columbus had. 8 shots off target compared to 2 that Columbus had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to Columbus has. And the possession-wise, 54% compared to 46 that Columbus has. So Atlanta definitely had more shots in this game, and Zach Steffen definitely come up big a couple of times in this game, making a couple of decent saves. But at the same time, for Atlanta, after this game, yeah, the concern level just gets higher and higher for this team. And I don't think it's time to really panic, because once again, it's still very early in the season, and that Atlanta, I still expect them to potentially turn this around. But the longer they go this kind of bad run that they have start the season, the more concern and just really the level of panic is going to get higher for this team. And for Frank de Boer, another guy that I also will talk about tomorrow as a guy that could potentially get fired at the end of the season. Yeah, the pressure is definitely on him, and I'm already hearing a lot of Atlanta fans that have already started the De Boer out kind of brigade because of how bad that he's been coaching this team to start the season. But yeah, either way, with all the games that I talked about on this board done, it's time to switch the boards. Okay, so I realized that I forgot one of the game on Saturday, and it turns out to be the first game of the Saturday slate in terms of this match week, which was between the Red Bulls and the Fire. So I'm actually going to do that last and just go over the remaining Saturday and Sunday game before I get to the one that should have been featured on the first board and that it's now going to be featured in the second board. But yeah, next up, more blowouts. And this time it's the Rapids that fell into the victim of the blowout kind of games that we had this weekend, and they lost to Houston 4-1 in this one. And anytime if you lose to Houston and you are the home team that lose to Houston, that's not a good sign. But anytime you lose it in a blowout kind of margin, it's even a more alarming sign. And for the Rapids, as much as I gave them a lot of credit of how good they've been playing lately, and the only reason why they're not getting a lot of credibility in terms of how good they've been playing lately, and that it definitely look a lot better than last year, is they're not getting the point. This game, however, was not one of those games where I can say that they play very well, and it looked very similar to what happened last year. First half, Memo Rodriguez scores from Alvarez Elise, and Elise pretty much just run the show in this game. Colorado had absolutely no answer for Elise, especially on that right side where he basically just killed them on that right side all game long. And this was the case where Elise just pulled the ball back to Memo Rodriguez to get the first goal. Then the second goal, Soderberg scores an own goal, and again, it's Elise coming on the right side, pulling it back to the middle. Soderberg, of course, hits it into his own net, and I believe there was another Houston player that was trying to tap it in. I couldn't quite remember who exactly it was, but on the replay, it looked like that player scored the goal, but then later they changed that it was off of Soderberg. So at that point, it was 2-0 Houston, and then Rosenberry also put it into his own net. This time, Elise, again, on that right side, cuts it back to the middle, and then Rosenberry basically, unfortunately, heads it into his own net. And really, these first three goals was just so identical to each other, and it was just simply Elise going to the right side, just completely destroyed that Rapids fullback area. And yeah, and when I look at this game, when this usually happened, this means that probably the Rapids didn't realize that they didn't do any homework in terms of thinking that Elise would be a dangerous man. And when I look at the formation at the end of this, I can tell why Elise was getting so much room. Like, they basically decided to play narrow in this game. Anthony Hudson think that he can just play narrow and that would be the way to do it. But when you have a team like Houston that is so threatening in the wing area, and with Elise so threatening in the right wing area, you decided to play narrow. That is a suicidal move. That is basically a move that's saying that, yeah, we gave up. Because, I think even for someone that don't kind of get into the tactical point of each game will know that you do not decided to field a narrow kind of formation against a team that has very good winger. Like that's just it's common knowledge, and yet somehow Anthony Hudson seems like he's getting that point. And in the 67th minute, Elise finally gets his goal from, guess who? Manotas. That Manotas and Elise Lee's combination is back to make it 4-0 at that point. Kai Kamara did get a penalty kick to get the consolation goal for the Rapids. And then Smith, of course, getting sent off in the 89th minute. And I think the announcer said this is like the fourth straight Colorado home game that they did not finish with 11 men. So the Rapids, they have been having a lot of disciplinary issue. And whenever there's a lot of disciplinary issue, it has a lot to do with the manager. Because if you cannot see your team keep getting sent off in the game. If you're like, after one red card, you should get the message to the team that, you better be more disciplined, or else you are gonna get sent off game in and game out. And it doesn't seem like Anthony Hudson is telling these guys to be more disciplined, and that's why now they keep getting red cards every single game. Shots in this game, Colorado actually had 20 shots on shots in this game compared to 10 that Houston had, but they only had 5 shots on goal compared to 6 that Houston had, 9 shots off target compared to 3 that Houston had, 6 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that Houston had, and Colorado slightly had better possession than what Houston has with 53% to 47%, but as I said before, Anthony Hudson absolutely got this one wrong, and he is probably the reason why they lost this one. And like what I said about why in the world did you decide to play a narrow formation when there's just like Houston, they feed off in terms of their wingers play in terms of the attack, and when you decide to play a narrow position like that, that is just that's suicidal in many ways. Next up, RSL. Well, another game, another red card, and just like their Rocky Mountain companion, they also are having some disciplinary issue, and I think this is the third straight game that RSL has finished a game without 11 men. First half, 40 seconds into the game, Goretzo scores from Barrios and Ferreira. And by the way, after this game, I'm officially a Paxton Pomacco fan, and I'll tell you why. After this game, I am exactly a fan of him. And then, of course, Krylak gets a red card in the 17th minute, and really, Krylak, he basically headbutted. And I understand when you look on the replay, it looked like when Krylak was trying to like headbutt it, Goretzo kind of made a little bit of meal out of that, kind of dived a little bit as Krylak was about to lean his head and headbutted him. There wasn't really a whole lot of contact in terms of that headbutt, but anytime when you try to make a motion to basically headbutt someone, yeah, that is an automatic red card. And I know some people say, well, it wasn't a lot of contact. Anytime when you make a headbutt notion, that is a violent contact, no matter if there is contact or not. So, yeah, RSL was down to 10 men, but RSL did get the equalizer in the 31st minute after Savarino scores from Salcedo's, and then just as RSL fans thought that there was maybe hopes that they can get something out of it, despite the fact that they're down to 10 men, there is my man, Paxton Pomacco, scoring his first ever goal in MLS in the 32nd minute, just literally 20 seconds after RSL gets the equalizer, and at that point, it was 2-1, and Pomacco wasn't done because in the second half, he scored again from Ferreira and Hollinshead, and Jesus Ferreira, another guy that I also want to kind of highlight in this game, because I know after this, if you're an American fan, the big headlines is going to be Paxton Pomacco, getting the 2 goals and just getting things going. But let's not forget about Jesus Ferreira in this game. He also had an incredible game. He had 2 assists and even a goal, as I will talk about in just a bit. And yeah, he is another guy that is kind of like a homegrown kind of player, a very young homegrown kind of FC Dallas player that is making a breakthrough. And RSL, however, did get a goal to potentially make a game on from Marcelo Silva and Rusnak, but it just seemed like every time when RSL trying to make things interesting, FC Dallas able to respond. And this was the case, as I mentioned, Ferreira with a goal from Barrios and Hedges, and that is your final score in this game. Shots in this game, FC Dallas had 12 shots compared to 7 that RSL had, 6 shots on goal compared to 3 that RSL has, 4 shots off target compared to RSL 3, 2 shots that was blocked compared to 1 that RSL has, and FC Dallas had 68% possession compared to 32% that RSL had. It's not very often that you see a road team get so much possession on the road against the home team, but that was the case in this game. And like I said, Paxton Palmico, he is started to... I really hope that from this game, this is something that we're going to see him do in the future, because he is obviously a very young kind of talented kid, and a kid that is currently with the U20 side, and if he lights up for the U20 side, then we might potentially have either a player that can play on the wing and also a guy that can play in the number 10 spot. But like I said, let's not forget about Ferreira, who I know I would say if I would have gave the man of the match, I would have given to Palmico, because he did score a couple of goals, and the second goal that he scored was pretty amazing. The fact that he can just basically hits it off of his back foot and puts it into the back of the net. But Ferreira, I think if you look at it overall, he certainly would be the man of the match, because he got that goal and those 2 assists, and he was the guy that impact 3 of the 4 goals that Dallas was able to score in this one. But next up, Vancouver. Well, they finally get their first point in this game, and with Vancouver getting their first point this game, that means now the Quakes are the only team with 0 points so far, which, as much as it's very sad to say, I'm not surprised, because looking the way that the Quakes have started the season, yeah, they don't look like they are an MLS team whatsoever. But Vancouver did get their first point against their rival Seattle with a 0-0 draw, which this is actually also the second 0-0 draw of this season. In terms of the shots in this game, 12 shots that Vancouver has compared to 14 that the Sounders had. Both teams had 3 shots on goal, 4 shots off target compared to 5 that Seattle has, 5 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that Seattle has, and Seattle had 57% possession compared to 43% possession that the Whitecaps have. Now, there was a bit of a controversy late in this game, because it seemed like the Whitecaps, every single game this season, there's at least some sort of controversy. And that was right at stoppage time. It looked like Kim Ki-hee actually took out his countryman Bone from Vancouver after he basically made a sliding challenge that, on the follow through, he kind of took out Bone there. And originally they said it was a penalty, but when they look at VAR, it was not a penalty, and it was a very good call, because when you look at when Kim Ki-hee's sliding it through, he basically kind of blocked that shot that Bone was trying to shoot. And I know that he did kind of clip him on the follow through, but anytime when you're trying to go for the ball, either you trying to lunge and block a shot, or if you're trying to make a sliding challenge in the box and get the ball, that's not a penalty whatsoever. It's only a penalty if you do not attempt to play the ball or not even getting close to the ball, and then you basically took out a player. That, of course, is a penalty. So I know Vancouver fans are upset about that not being a penalty, but the rule clearly says if you attempt to try to get the ball and also you get the ball, which clearly Kim Ki-hee did in this case when he blocked the shot from Bone, then yeah, that's not a penalty. But overall, I think if you're a Whitecaps fan, I don't think you should complain about this result. I think a point against a Sounders team that have not dropped any points in coming into this game as the only team to have not dropped any points so far this season, it's still a very good result. And the defense looked really good in this game. They really kind of silenced this Sounders attack that has just looked so good in these last couple of games. So for the Whitecaps, it's a good point to take, and for the Sounders, yeah, it's frustrated the fact that you didn't get all 3 points, but still, they are the red hot start would. If I just think that the red hot start would eventually kind of have to kind of come to an end, and that you know, you know, just move on from this one. At least you get a point on the road, and maybe in the next game you of course will bounce back. But next up, DC, they continue to win games, and they actually won on the road for once, as they beat Orlando City 2-1 in this game. First half, Birbaum scores from Rootney, so it's very rare to see Steve Birbaum gets on the score sheet, but he scored the first goal for DC to make it 1-0, and then Rootney scores a impossible angle free kick that I think could definitely be up there as the goal of the week, although I still think that maybe the goal of the week probably will be that Pozuelo goal where he basically just kind of like chipped through and then hits it into the top left corner. I mean, that is a very cheeky kind of goal, but certainly honorable mention in terms of Rooney, where he basically took a free kick that was like near the corner flag, and yet somehow in some way he was still able to bend that one into the top right corner. Just an incredible goal, and just kind of shows some quality of what Wayne Rooney has and what he used to do when he was in his prime. So at that point it was 2-0, but then Orlando City really made it interesting, and in the second half they really were going for it and really troubled DC in this game. Dwyer scores from Mueller and Nani, and it's 2-1 at that point. The crowd was getting very excited and getting energetic, and then DC, they was just holding on for dear life for the last 20 minutes. Like Orlando City, they put so much pressure on DC. A couple of decent saves from Bill Hamid, and after all that, DC is still able to walk away with a 2-1 victory. Shots in this game really tells you the fact that DC was really holding on, and that Orlando City was really trying to get at least a point in this game. 16 shot compared to 4 that DC had. 5 shots on goal compared to 3 that DC had. 8 shots off target compared to 1 that DC had. 3 shots that was blocked compared to 6 that DC had. And in terms of possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that DC has. And yeah, DC, again, even though they win this game, this was not a pretty performance. And I think this is probably going to be the reason where it's going to separate in terms of me thinking that they could potentially be a top team. I mean, I know right as of now they are top of the Eastern Conference, but it just seemed like on the road they don't look like the same team as they are at home. And sure, when you play against Orlando City, not a good team, you can basically get away with not really playing very well and really kind of had to hold on for dear life at the end. But if you play a good team on the road, let's say like TFC for example, because they also are near the top of the standing, if you kind of play this kind of style, then yeah, I don't expect you to get all maximum points in this one. So, but still, DC, they'll be happy the fact that they're able to get their first point on the road in a very, very long time. And as for Orlando City, this is a very frustrating result because you had them in the second half. You had so many chances to at least get an equalizer and maybe get at least a point or even all 3 points in this, but they just cannot finish. And after what happened last week, where there was maybe some promise that Orlando City can kind of turn things around, yeah, not quite so. I mean, they dropped all 3 points at home. Last week seems more like an outlier now than it is what happened in this game. And then next up, and in the final game of this weekend, even though technically there's one more game I'm going to be talking about, like I mentioned earlier about how I missed the Chicago versus Red Bulls game that was supposed to be on the first board. But the last game of this weekend is the Galaxy with a 2-1 win against the Timbers. First half, Zlatan scores on a penalty to make it 1-0 to the Galaxy, but then Abovasi equalized from Guzman and Valeri, and I gotta say, this was a very, very well worked goal. I mean, there was like 4 passes that led up to that goal. It was very kind of ticky-tacky style, and when you see that is a dream kind of scenario for coaches, because not only the players are passing the ball with fruition, but they're able to set up a very good goal. And this goal, I think if it wasn't for Rooney and Pozuelo, I think this would be potentially one of the goal that could be winning the goal of the week this week. But then in the second half, Zlatan scores another penalty, and just like what Pozuelo did with his penalty, where he basically did a Panenka, the same goes with Zlatan. And I gotta say, Antonella, he did almost got to that one, as he realized that Zlatan was going to take a Panenka. He basically dived one way and then tried to reach his arm to maybe block that one, but fortunately he couldn't do it in time. And anytime when you're a goalkeeper and you have to face a penalty and that the taker takes a Panenka, yeah, it's hard to save that, because that a lot of players, when they take penalty shot, they don't take a Panenka. They usually just hit it hard to the right. That's why you have to guess the right way. But when a player decides to take a Panenka and you basically already gone to one way, yeah, that momentum basically just gonna take you to that way, and it's very hard to try to correct yourself and basically try to save that Panenka shot. But Antonella almost did when he was trying to go back one way to reach his hand to maybe grab that Panenka or parries that one away. But at that point, it was 2-1, and that would be your final score in this game. Shots in this game, the Galaxy had 11 shots compared to 9 that the Timbers had. 2 shots on goal compared to 4 that Portland has. 8 shots off target compared to 3 that Portland has. 1 shot that was blocked compared to 2 that the Timbers had. And the Galaxy had 57% possession compared to 43% possession that Portland has. So for the Galaxy, it's another good win. And for the Timbers, yeah, this is going to be the result that you're going to have to endure throughout this 12-game road trip. Although the good news for the Timbers is that their very next road trip is against the Quakes. And I gotta say, even if you don't get anything for the rest of the road trip, I have a feeling Portland will at least get a point, or even all 3 points against the Quakes. Because let's face it, anybody can face the Quakes that either is in a very bad form or in a very good form. They can still get all 3 points, which that just shows how bad the Quakes has been. So that's the good news for Portland. They get to play the Quakes. They get to get 3 points in that and get things going. But other than that, it has definitely not been a great start for Portland. And I think a lot of people I was kind of expected the fact that, knowing how bad they were on the road in the second half of the season, and knowing what happened last year when they had that first 5 game on the road where they didn't even get a win, it looked like it's going to be the same case this time. Although this time it's going to be a 12-game road trip. But yeah, finally, and talking about the game that I forgot to mention in the first when I did the board on the first 6 games, is the Fire getting a 1-0 win against the Red Bulls. And, despite the fact that Chicago get a 1-0 win, they could have easily had 2 or even 3 goals. I think for the Fire, if you're a Fire fan coming out of this game, you'll be very happy that you beat the defending Supporters Shield champ. But I think one thing that will always keep in your mind is this could have been more. And that I don't want to say this is a concern, but the missed chances that they had in this game, yeah, if you play let's say the Red Bulls again, or even play against a good team, you cannot miss those opportunities. You cannot miss those one-on-one opportunities that you have to potentially put the game away. Because against the big team, if you decide to let them just hang around, they would eventually find a way to score a goal. Now, fortunately, it didn't happen in this case. And really, the only goal in this game wasn't scored by the Chicago Fire. It was actually Tim Parker's score, an own goal. And talk about the poor finishing. Nikolic basically hits that one off the post. And just, it took a very fortunate Chicago Fire ricochet that, well, it's fortunate for the Chicago Fire, but it's unfortunate for the Red Bulls, where it ricocheted off the post. It basically came off the chest of Tim Parker, that he was already close to where the line is, and as he chested it down, the ball actually went behind the line, and as he tried to clear that one away to try to clear off the line, it says that unfortunately he couldn't quite do it, and that was really the only goal in this game. So that was a very strange goal and a very unfortunate situation for Tim Parker and for the Red Bulls. But, at the end of the day, for the Red Bulls, I mean, I know it is back-to-back loss now, and I know there are a lot of Red Bulls fans that is very concerned about this team, but I just think that, this happens to most teams where they're going to get into a stretch where they're going to kind of struggle a lot, and I think the Red Bulls are in that stretch right now. And plus, the Red Bulls, it seems like Chris Armas is trying to he's trying to do something and trying to switch the tactics and switch the way that the Red Bulls have been playing. And some people will ask, why does he decide to do that if things are already working out? Well, the reason why is that if you want to stick to your identity, eventually your identity is going to be finding out for team, which is why when you see good team play, they always have like plan B or C or even D, and they always find a different identity and a different way to play, so that opponents that might have a book on them when they play during the match day, and the other opponent decide to do something else, that's when they kind of get caught on that. But for the Red Bulls, I think they're kind of like just trying to maybe find a different identity and a different way to play, so that later on they might not get find out so easily. So that's why they're kind of struggling a little bit. They're trying to tinker with the tactics, which, if you're going to do that, why not do it earlier in the season? And that, I think if they did this, if Chris Armas did this late in the season, then yeah, Red Bulls fan will not be happy, and they would be very concerned about that. But still, the Red Bulls are going to have to eventually kind of turn this around. And in terms of the shots in this game, Chicago had 11 shots compared to 7 that the Red Bulls had. 4 shots on goal compared to 1 that the Red Bulls had. 5 shots off target compared to 3 that the Red Bulls had. 2 shots that was blocked compared to 3 that the Red Bulls had. And the Red Bulls had 64% possession compared to 36 that the Fire has. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for all the 12 games that happened this week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these games? And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.